Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Friday. It's a 512 Friday edition of the Sports Complex here on the Horn. I'm your host, Patrick Davis. Big show for you today. Lots going on. We got Sark talking to the media today. Some good stuff about the preseason polls, physicality, player conditioning, all that coming up in our first break. Pac-12 reports today they turned down $30 million a team. And where did they end up with that? Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day. Recap of the Texans game last night. What to look for the Cowboys game tomorrow. And at 6 o'clock, we will get into talking about the GOAT. At least in my book, the GOAT of coaching. Greg Popovich goes into the Hall of Fame tomorrow along with Tony Parker, Becky Hammon, Pau Gasol, Dwayne Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, and a bunch of other people. But Greg Popovich, we're going to talk about the genius that is Greg Popovich. And a little bit later, the man who actually is playing on this song right here, who does our intro, is playing a show this weekend, is always playing around town. Eddie Hernandez from the Heebie-Jeebies from the ADH Project. Going to be part of OE Fest 2023 this Sunday at the Rail House in Kyle, and he's going to be calling into the show a little bit later on. Remember, you can join the conversation on the Specs text line. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. 512-337-3776 is the number. And if you want to join it on Twitter, you can go in, or Instagram at It's Patrick Davis is where you can find me on there. Let's get into Sark. He talked to the media today. Texas is about to get into scrimmaging. They're about to get into starting to get some actual contact, actually trying to get out there, having some refs, having actual play calls, trying to figure out, and you're still playing against each other, but we're getting ready. We're basically 3 weeks out from real football played at the University of Texas. So they are getting ready, and Sark spoke to the media today. Let's get to Sark and what he said to start things off. Kind of talking about where they're at and what is going to be happening this weekend.
Last time we spoke was Monday, and now Friday. We've had some really quality practices. So how we did it was Monday and Tuesday. We kind of did a 2-day block of some pretty physical practices on those first 2 days of the week. Wednesday was an off day. We had another pretty physical taxing practice on Thursday. Today was a little bit lighter, more situational work, and then tomorrow we'll have an opportunity to scrimmage where we can really find out kind of where people are at. I think one thing that is always challenging, especially for players and coaches for that matter, that we have to be mindful of. The first scrimmage really gives us an idea of a barometer of where everybody's at. It's not that they're a finished product at that time, and so I want to get a gauge for where we're at, whether you're a returning player, whether you're a true freshman, on offense, on defense, on special teams. Where is there, if errors are occurring, where are they occurring? And maybe it's a schematical thing. And so there's a lot of information we can get from the first scrimmage tomorrow so that it gives us an idea of things we need to work on going into next week to get the players prepared to scrimmage in the second scrimmage. The second scrimmage then really starts diving into setting a depth chart with 2 weeks to go to get ready for that first game. And so we've gathered a lot of information, but like I said, coming out of tomorrow, hopefully we find out a little bit more of just kind of where we're at now in all three phases and from a team mentality as we go.
There you go. That is Sark at a media availability today, and one of the things you hear about that most is this is basically we are officially into countdown mode. We are 3 weeks away from the Rice game. And for Sark to be able to say, hey, some guys practice really well. Some guys are, they're practice warriors. They come out and they look great. But as soon as you put them into any type of game situation, they slow down. Now, you can't tell a scrimmage versus real-time game. Those are two completely different worlds, too. So this is not a judging of everything. But to be able to hear some reports coming out of the scrimmage that'll start this weekend is you'll start to get more of a viewpoint of, okay, this guy is, especially for freshmen, how far along is, Anthony Hill or Jonte Cook or Lepa or any of these guys, how much better does Kelvin Banks look this year? Is Jonathan Brooks killing it? Is CJ Baxter going to play well? All of those things you kind of get to see a little bit of, okay, let's judge the progress because in practice, they're doing everything well. They're because, especially 5-star players, a lot of times you're going to see, and they're going to take everything in that you give them and show back those results in practice. But when the blitz is coming, can they make that reaction? When the defender, and especially in scrimmages, a lot of times the defenders know what you're going to do. So it makes it a little bit harder. Can you get separation in those moments? Can you trick a defender when he thinks he knows what route you're running? All those things are going to be stuff you can kind of figure out to get a base level, especially on the freshmen, but everyone of that progress through an offseason that you've been seeing them, and give them that reality check. Just that little bit of a reality check of, are you ready to play football at a higher level? Because now we have 3 weeks. So we've been doing it. We've gotten in our mold. Let's break the tendencies and go into the mold. He was also asked then, well, if you're starting this prep and Rice is your game one, you can't practice for game two. That's how you lose game one, is if you start practicing for game two. So let's look at game one. Are you going to start putting stuff in and, maybe start trying to figure out a game plan for Rice? Here's what Sark had to say when he was asked about if you'll be preparing for Rice starting at this first scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, from a staff perspective, we've done a lot of work on that game already and feel pretty good about it. From a player's perspective, we won't get into that. We have time. I always fight that. You start giving them information too early, then it becomes redundant, and then they start missing those nuances. And so we're really focused on what we need to do right now. And there's some things that we'll use in those first few games that we're practicing now, but the players don't know it yet. Right? The players don't know yet. So that's all part of the process.
So, yes, we are prepared, and we're going to put some stuff in that's maybe week one stuff, maybe some week two stuff, but we're not telling them that it's week one and week two stuff yet. Because, week two is you're playing Alabama. So once you say, hey, we got to get ready for Alabama, we know that we have to start sticking in some plays just so they're used to them, and maybe just put it in one in week scrimmage one, maybe play it twice in scrimmage two. Maybe get a little bit, maybe one more time in scrimmage 3 as we get closer. But this is not the scrimmage of this game is not getting ready for Rice. This is the closest thing you're going to get to practice. So once we get past, this is what is happening this weekend. You have to start looking at, okay, let's go back and figure out what the team is, how ready are they to be at this point in the season. And one of the parts Sark talked about was the physicality at camp. And someone asked him if this season was a little bit harder because of the weather, because of the heat here in Austin. If this team is a little bit tougher, if the physicality's been a bit more because it's been hot and you were trying to get out, and even if you're practicing in the bubble, even if you're doing stuff inside, just walking from place to place, you're going to break a sweat, and if you break a sweat, it kind of puts you in a different mindset. And so even if you're just walking to where you're going, and your body temperature rises, it may get you in a mood where you're ready to hit somebody a little bit harder and make that move a little bit harder. Here's Sark talking about the physicality at camp this year versus other years.
It's probably been a little bit more physical than we've had historically. I think the depth has helped us where, I've the last couple of years, there's been times I've been so concerned and I don't want to get anybody hurt because if something happens to this guy behind him, it's scary, right? Right now, I feel we've got a really quality depth on our team, and we're going 1s, 2s, and 3s. And sometimes the 3 might be a better player athletically than the 1, but the 1's knowledge base is so strong. But the drop off isn't as significant. So in turn, what's happened is we've been physical. We've had a few more live periods than we probably normally would have. But what's unique is, oddly enough, we've had less injuries. So knock on wood, it's been really positive. So I think it has been a little bit more physical that way, and it's been competitive. But also, I think everybody's playing at a higher level because they know the depth is there. On that note, Savion Red is the one guy right now that is down for us. He got a sprained shoulder, so I think he'll be down here for a couple weeks.
So a little update there on Savion Red. I will give you, this is something that I don't remember when I learned this, but it is something for you to know about knocking on wood, because I still do it. You need to knock on wood after whatever you say. So you can't say knock on wood and then say the thing you do, because the apparent myth of where knock on wood started was that people believed that whatever group that invented this believed that there was wood sprites and they would make it a mission when you said that you were hoping for something or that you needed this or whatever. They would make it their mission to ruin it if you said that thing. And the reason you would knock on wood was then to jar their memory, basically give the wood sprites CTE, give them brain damage. That is what apparently knock on wood comes from. That is what I've read, and just a tidbit for you on a Friday. So when you say knock on wood, you need to knock on wood after whatever you say. Don't say knock on wood, knock on it, and then do it, because they're still going to remember what you said, the wood sprites, and ruin your life. You have to do it afterwards to get these wood. Just stuff for you to learn on a Friday. But it is interesting to hear him say the physicality. This is one of the many statements he's made that puts you further on to the depth of this team and puts you on to realizing what Sark feels, how he feels differently. And it's not just talk about, hey, man, this roster is ready to go. This roster feels like a team that can go compete at a high level. Because the talk of it is, hey, we still have to sit our players. Hey, we still don't want to push them in training camp because I know I don't have that next tight end. I know I don't have that next lineman. I know I don't have that next defensive back. But if you start to feel, okay, we got some guys, and, if they're out of game or whatever, and we know we beat them up and rough them up, like Savion Red going down. Savion Red, I think, is going to be used in a lot of interesting formations. They may be trying to get him somewhat in a position like Keelan Robinson is, of a back that can do multiple things, and in that phrase that Sark still doesn't use in positionless football. That's where Savion Red. So you are using him in different looks. And, he goes down, but you say, all right, we still have Keelan Robinson. We still have plenty of guys who can go out there and make plays, so we don't need that right away. But you still want to have that physicality in practice to get you ready. So when you do go to Alabama early in a season, and Nick Saban's got depth, except at quarterback. Other than a quarterback, Nick Saban's got depth. And if you want to say they're going to come out there and they're going to play with a physicality because Nick Saban's pissed off that they had to kick a field goal to win last year. He doesn't like that people are, that Georgia has won 2 straight championships and he's not the big dog anymore. So he's going to come and try and prove a point against Texas, and they're going to hit. They took out 2 quarterbacks last year. Alabama did. So you want that physicality at Texas camp to step up to another level because they did beat the crap out of us last year. They set Texas back 4 or 5 weeks because of the physicality of Alabama in that game. So you need to have the physicality in practice so that you're ready. When you play instruments, you need to build calluses on your finger. When you don't, and you have to go play, and someone goes, hey, can you do a 3-hour set? And you're used to only practicing 30 minutes a day. You practice 30 minutes, and you want to play 3 hours, you're going to be bleeding down your instrument, whether you play drums or guitar or bass or whatever. You're going to be bleeding. That's what happens if you don't practice at a high enough level. When that hit comes and it rattles you, you're going to be on your back foot instead of the front foot. You're not going to be pushing this as hard. So you need that physicality to be there. Another part of the physicality is the conditioning. And another part of Sark on his plan, where he's talked about year 1 to year 3, he talked about the players' conditioning and how we keep hearing stories about guys reaching their fitness goals, reaching their goal. We had the quarterback shirtless picture, the quarterback thirst trap picture they posted. We had that. And so here's Sark talking about the players' conditioning at media availability today.
Well, I think, one, everybody's different, right? We got some guys that are trying to lose weight. We got some guys that are trying to gain weight. We got some guys that are trying to lose body fat. We got some guys that we actually want a little more body fat on, It's not, in my opinion, very healthy to be like 4% body fat, right? That's, you're opening yourself up to soft tissue things. So everybody's different. I mean, I wish I was 4% body fat. Clearly I'm not. But point being, everybody's different. And when they realize that we have all of these resources at our disposal, we're trying to do everything in our power to put them in the best position to be successful. And if they will follow our lead, they will see change. Naturally, what happens with players, especially in the locker room, when one guy sees change in another guy that kind of looks like him, how did you do that? What did you do? And they start to follow suit. So it's been a little bit of a cycle of guys that have bought in to another level, whether it's been eating, their eating habits, whether it's been their recovery habits. It's when Jay Witt all of a sudden is the first guy in the building every day, and you tell a DeAndre Moore, I want you to try to emulate what Jordan Whittington does, guess who starts coming in earlier in the morning, right? DeAndre Moore. So those types of examples, right, make sense. And then all of a sudden now you're getting into the mindfulness stuff and working with sports psychologists and getting yourself mentally in the right frame of mind. And all of a sudden when Xavier Worthy or a JT Sanders or a Quinn Ewers take that really important, well, if I'm a younger player and I want to play really good, maybe I'm supposed to go do that. So I think that cycle has started for us. I think it started this off season, but it's continued to build in training camp as well.
There you go. There you go. It's the team being able to inspire the team. When you're starting to have players looking up to the players on this Texas roster, and it's not a feeling that I feel like it was a few years ago when Sark came in and there were Sark guys and then there was everybody else and everybody was vying for that position. You didn't have the feeling of I'm rooting for him because we all want to win. We all want to win versus no, I need to be the starter. I need to get in there. I'm doing better than you. You're looking at the other guy and go, all right, you tell me how you did it and we can improve together. Let's make the best team possible. And it seems like that culture is starting to build at Texas more and more from more stories you hear off the 40 acres. Versus everyone competing for the spot versus a little bit more toxic of a culture of not trusting the person next to you, which is very important when you talk about going into a game where if someone misses a block, that could be the end of your season. When you talk about you need to put that extra effort in to sit in the pocket as a quarterback and put the ball downfield and may have to take a bad hit. And you may need to know, hey, man, if I get winded, I can come out of this game for a play and let the next guy come in. All of that, and I know you don't want to, but all of that is what you need. You need everybody to be on the same page of trying to be the best they can be. So you want competition. You need that. Competition is good. But you want it to be friendly competition within your team and not somebody not believing that the person in front of them has earned their spot. You don't want it that you want to be worried that your spot is not safe, but you don't want to be worried that someone's going behind your back and trying to do it and you're not working together. And you don't want the person behind you to be going to the gym every day and not telling you and then coming back and putting on 25 pounds of muscle. You want everybody on your D-line to have an extra 25 pounds of muscle. You don't want one guy because that's how you build a winning team and that's how you build depth. Sark also was asked about preseason polls. We know the coaches poll came out. Texas gets ranked. And he was asked if this becomes an issue for Sark and what he feels about preseason polls.
Not really. I use it both ways, like I have this year. I can, like I said, I can put up a slide in a team meeting and I can have 5 articles with headlines of how great we're supposed to be this fall. And then right next to it, I can have a headline of 5 articles of, we're going to stink and we're Texas and they're going to blow it again. So I can do both. And that's kind of what I do because it really doesn't matter, right? That's what I'm trying to get across to the players. What other people think of us really is irrelevant. What we do on the field on Saturdays is what ultimately matters and the way we play. And so that's the point I try to get across to. I'm always fascinated by preseason polls, that guys can predict how good a team's going to be, but yet never see him practice and never see him play yet. Now, I get after the first few games, we start to get an idea, but preseason polls are interesting. But I will say this. I love preseason polls as a fan of college football because it gives us as fans of the game something to talk about, something to read about, something to write about. That's the beauty of it, man. I remember as a kid, I couldn't wait for the Sports Illustrated article, right, with their preseason number 1 on the cover and the top 25, and reading about every team. And so the preseason polls are synonymous with college football, and I love that side of it. But I also know being in the fire right now, it really doesn't matter, right? What we do ultimately is what matters.
I love Sark midway through that answer seemed to realize that he didn't want to piss off everybody in the media. We don't care about polls. Also, don't rank us that low. Hey, no, they're good. There's good. You guys, I agree with him, though. Preseason polls are kind of a guess. You say, well, your track record shows this. And the reason why Texas is not higher and not a top 10 team is because of their track record, because they haven't shown up in big games. And they've lost too many games late in the game. And if you say, well, your track record tells me you're going to drop 3 games this year that you shouldn't. You're going to drop 1 you should and 2 you shouldn't. That's what your track record tells me. So you have to go out there and prove me wrong. That's what the preseason poll is. I agree with them. They're usually pretty silly. They're usually, there's always teams that are vastly overranked. There's teams they'll give them a shot at the end. They'll put them at 23, and then that team wins 4 games that season. That always happens. So it is something you don't have to worry about. He also says in there that no one even mentioned it the day it came out. He didn't find out. He didn't even see the poll until the next day. So it does not seem to be a distraction. But yeah, you can use it however you need to use it. You have to get that motivation. He's learned from some great guys in Pete Carroll and Nick Saban to always make yourself seem like you're the underdog. Always make it seem like you're the team that no one believes in, even if you are. And you can find anybody talking smack. Hey, man, they ranked us this low. Can you believe it? Let's go win a game. Let's go prove them. Let's go put up a 70 spot against Rice. One more interesting thing. He talked about, of course, Texas gets the recruitment of Colin Simmons yesterday. Huge five-star defensive end, number 1 defensive end in the 2024 class. Someone asked him about, and no particular person, but asked him, hey, how is it trying to keep recruiting a guy once he commits, but he hasn't signed? How is that? What's the process, and is it harder to recruit a guy that you've already committed, that's already committed? How is it?
Well, I think, naturally, I always joke, when they commit to you, you have to recruit them harder. Because when a young man is down to 3, 4, 5 schools, everybody's recruiting the kid, and they're not really sure who they're recruiting against, right? Because everybody's jockeying for a position. The moment the young man commits to you, now the target's on you. All those other 3 schools, now they know who they're recruiting against. And so you have to understand kind of and get ahead of what are the, I hate to say it, people negative recruit. We try not to. I don't, and I make that very clear with the kids that we recruit. I talk about our program, not other schools. But inevitably, people are going to negative recruit. And so what are they going to say? And then you try to get in front of it. And oddly enough, the kids kind of chuckle. They'll call me and say, hey, coach, Joe from X University said exactly what you said. And he laughed. Well, what am I trying to do there? I'm trying to forge a relationship with these guys that they can trust me. And that's how you do it. We just try to keep pouring into the relationship. We try to keep developing trust to where they feel like, this is their home. That's my coach. I can count on him. I can trust him.
I trust Sark in recruiting. But at the end of the day, just win, baby. You win games, it's real easy to keep recruits if you win. It's real easy to keep recruits if you win. You start losing games, that's when, hey, man, well, LSU, they're not losing. Or Miami's not losing. And you guys are losing. You're losing. You lost a game to Oklahoma State. Oh, I don't know if I want to go play there. I don't know if I'm going to be the one to bring them back if they're that far away. So you just got to keep winning. Speaking of someone who is not winning, little Pac-12 news. Report came out today that ESPN, so we've been covering all week, ESPN reported today, I believe multiple sources reported today, that there was apparently an offer on the table in 2022 from ESPN to the Pac-12 for a deal that it basically gave every team $30 million a season. That was the deal. $30 million per school per season. That's roughly, it's lower than the Big 12 is right now, which the Big 12 is going to be closer to that because they just added a bunch of new teams. The SEC is closer to, I think, 48, 49 million. The Big 10 is in that 45 something range. So there are these schools that are a lot more. Now, the ACC is around that, and they'll lose more money if they add in Stanford and Cal. But Pac-12 says, oh, no, we don't see that. We're not valued. Apparently, George Kliavkoff, according to reports, comes back and says, no, we don't want your $30 million. We want $50 million. And ESPN said goodbye. And all I could think was old George Kliavkoff. Sounded a lot like George Seinfeld.
13,000?
13,000.
A piece?
No, for both.
That's insulting. Ted Danson makes $800,000 an episode.
Oh, would you stop with the Ted Danson?
Well, he does.
You're nuts.
I'm sorry. I can't live knowing that Ted Danson makes that much more than me. Who's he?
He's somebody.
What about me?
You're nobody.
Why him? Why not me?
He's good. You're not.
I'm better than him.
You're worse. Much, much worse.
There you go, Pac-12. You're worse. Much, much worse. That is what ESPN told to George Kliavkoff when he said, no, why does the SEC make $49 million per school per year? We want more than that. Why not me? Why Ted Danson? Why the SEC? And it ended up blowing up in his face. The Pac-12 is now dead for all intents and purposes because of George Kliavkoff trying to pull a George Costanza. Whew. Man, that story gets funnier every day. Dad, George Kliavkoff. And people were like, yeah, no, we heard about this and seemed stupid at the time to pass it up, but that's good old George for you. Let's get over to Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day. Yesterday we asked you the worst. We asked you which quarterback will have the worst preseason. Rookie quarterback will have the worst preseason. The votes came in as C.J. Stroud. I feel like that is mostly based off of what happened in Game 1, which we will get into in the next segment. Look, the other guys may be worse. Who knows? C.J. Stroud barely played. He may be worse. But let's get today's Patrick's Big Fat Poll.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day on the Horn.
We're going to talk about him in the 6 o'clock hour, but Greg Popovich goes in the Hall of Fame on Saturday, and I want to ask you, I know who my vote was for, but I'm going to ask you guys, who is the greatest coach in NBA history? And I have 4 listed, but you may disagree. So I want you to give me your 4 greatest coaches and who your greatest coach is. Greg Popovich, Red Auerbach, Phil Jackson, Pat Riley is who I have on my Mount Rushmore of NBA coaches. Is one of those not there? Tell me on the Specs text line, 512-337-3776. Tell me there, 512-337-3776. Who is the greatest coach in NBA history? Am I missing one? Is there another one other than Popovich, Red Auerbach, Phil Jackson, Pat Riley? Are we there? Is Greg Popovich the GOAT now? Or do you still think it's Phil? Do you still think it's Red? Do you still think that it's Pat Riley? Let me know. When we come back, we will talk some NFL. We will get into the recap of what happened with the Texans. We will talk about what to look forward for the Cowboys game tomorrow. And we'll move along here on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260 on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Welcome back to the Sports Complex. Here on the Horn, it is a 512 Friday, playing some songs from here in the 512. And this is the great MC Overlord. Look, can you hear me? We will be doing the annual show to celebrate the life and legacy of MC Overlord. We lost him a few years ago. We do a show every year to celebrate him. It's called LV Fest. We are going to be doing it down at the Rail House in Kyle this Sunday, August 13th. It's going to be a fun show with a lot of great acts and a band doing a tribute, a kind of a jam, and bringing up some MCs and doing some of Ovi's tracks. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Eddie Hernandez from the Heebie-Jeebies ADH Project is actually going to be running that jam, and he's going to be calling on the show a little bit later to talk about it, talk about his love of the Pittsburgh Steelers, too. So if you want to have some hate for him, you can hit us up on the Specs text line, 512-337-3776, and chime in on our poll of the day, who is the greatest coach in NBA history? We've already got some love for Chuck Daly. We'll get more into that when we get into the next segment. But 512-337-3776, who is the greatest coach in NBA history is our poll of the day. Texans played last night against the Patriots, and there were some positives. There were some negatives. That defense looked real. Defense looked real. CJ Stroud, not so much. CJ Stroud, and I'll give him credit. Look, CJ Stroud, his line, his amount of play, he threw 4 passes. He goes 2 for 4 for 13 yards. Throws an interception. Takes a sack. Bad sack. Doesn't look really great. So for CJ Stroud, we see that this is a problem of the speed of the game. And it just seemed like everything for him, he throws that first pass out, hit Nico Collins, and you say, okay, he's going to nail it. But even he, after the game, talked about his interception and basically him trying to put together why he threw that interception. We know that after the interception, he says basically, I want to go back in the game. I know I've sucked. Coach put me back in. He goes, man, it's preseason. You're only supposed to play this much, and that's how much you're going to play. We're going to learn on it and grow on it, and you'll come back. Here's CJ Stroud, though, after the game, talking about his interception and what he feels he should have done better.
Just trust my eyes. I seen a certain look to where I knew in film that they could run that to where the safety, if his man blocks, that he'll come off and really be locked into my eyes, and just lost track of that and just forced it. Should have just checked it down to Dalton, but it was a great play by Tube. I kind of just hiding out. He kind of was ducking low, so I didn't really see him. Thought I threw a good pass, but of course it wasn't. So hell of a play by number 2, and just put that in my back pocket and learn from it. So.
Thought I threw a good pass, but of course it wasn't. Yeah, I think this is one that he's going to have to go back and watch the film on, go put a little bit more emphasis on, and just see why he couldn't make the read when he gets sacked on the plays that didn't work out. The speed of the game. It's one of the biggest things for any rookie quarterback. We'll see it with Anthony Richardson. We will see it with Bryce Young. We will see it with Will Levis. All of them will have, and for Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, I think it'll be a little bit worse playing the Big Ten and playing in the SEC, and the SEC especially, because the Big Ten, there are a lot of guys that are very physical and pushing, but some of these schools, Ohio State is not, but if your main rival is in Michigan is not necessarily, now they're producing a lot of NFL talent, but I don't know if their speed of the game always is at the same as an NFL team, where there's a lot more twitchy guys when you get into a Georgia and an Alabama. So Bryce Young may be the guy who's the closest to NFL speed. We'll see when he comes out and has his debut. But look, I'm not as worried about CJ Stroud. You would have loved, like, the unrealistic 15% chance is that CJ Stroud comes out, completes 4 passes, goes 3 for 4, 4 for 5, gets a touchdown, walks off the field, sits down and goes, all right, I don't play again in the preseason. I'm ready. The odds of that happening were not great. It wasn't like CJ Stroud was the automatic number 1 and number 2. Bryce Young as well. So there's no one in this draft that you go, oh no, that guy's ready. Now, Caleb Williams next year, that's going to be the expectation. Will he be able to do it? I don't know. I doubt it. Just really, really hard. It's really hard to get used to the speed of the game And when you're working with a rookie offensive coordinator as well, who's never called plays before, and Bobby Slowick, it's just going to take a little bit of time for him to get it all down. But I'm not worried about it. Now, when we look on the other side of it, and who was the standout performer? Who is somebody that you can say, okay, I want to see what he can do this season? We talked about the wide receiver core. Here's Mike Garofalo talking about who he thought stood out on Good Morning Football this morning.
For the 2023 NFL season, when someone says to you, I want you to meet my friend Tank, you're thinking 6'5", 270 pounds, biceps on
somebody
a
who looks
shirt.
like Deuce Gruden. That's the other thing.
Yeah, goatee maybe,
Sure.
shaved head.
Yeah.
That's Tank.
Tribal tat.
No. That's Nathaniel. My man Tank, 5'8", 165 pounds, but he plays a lot bigger than that. My man Tank came right out of the gate last night with 5 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown that I pray to God we are going to see right here. Yes, we are. I mean, listen, it's about the circus catch here and all that kind of stuff. That's
cool.
great. Keeps his foot in bounds. That was a touchdown, by the way, because 1 knee equals 2 feet, 1 butt equals
That's a touchdown. Yeah.
But listen, it was the separation. It was the fact that he was finding space. If you watched him at all at Houston, go ask Clayton Tune, the quarterback for the Cougars, how many times he found Nathaniel, Tank, whatever you want to call him, just standing there wide open with nobody around him, because he's able to he understands coverages, finds the open spots, and he also creates that separation with that release that we just saw right there. Tank. Big old Tank, who should have arrived at training camp in a tank to announce his presence on the field last night.
Tank Dell, from what we hear in training camp, is the guy makes space. The guy gets open. And, man, if you're a rookie quarterback, that's a fun thing to hear. A guy who gets open. A guy that you're not worried about. Now, if you're his size, you got to get open, because you're not winning 50-50 balls. You're the same size, if not smaller, than some of these DBs. So you're not going up and jumping over a lot of these DBs. A lot of these guys are going to be bigger than you. You're going to have to get space. But apparently Tank Dell is doing that great. So now, are you able to make those catches? Now, the catch he made was great. But you got to come down with that in regular time and just get that regular catch, and we don't have to do the fun highlight reel play. But it's first game. First game of a guy who, played at Houston, is now playing for Houston. It's very fun, and you hope to see Tank Dell step up for the Houston Texans this year and become C.J. Stroud's guy. Now, you want John Mechie to be there. You want Nico Collins to step up, but I don't know if anybody believes Nico Collins' ceiling is really at a huge level. Where you think of Nico Collins, you go, okay, could this guy be somebody that's a slot receiver that is the slot receiver? Could he get up to Julian Edelman range of a guy who gets space, and he's not necessarily the craziest player? Like, he's not ever going to be Randy Moss, but could he still be, a great player for your team and somebody that has a connection with your quarterback that maybe you kind of rotate and flip around and bring in some other number ones and deep threats and all that other stuff? Or you get a John Mechie who becomes that? I don't know. I think there's hope for Tank Dell. If you want to take one thing out of the preseason game, Tank Dell offensively, it's Tank Dell. Another one I'll tell you is Juice Scruggs played well. We talked about that yesterday, that Juice Scruggs needs to play at a high level to prove that he is ready to be on the field. He looked like he is ready to be a starting center in the league. He's not perfect. He's not pancaking everybody. He's not there yet. But where he's at already, not making mental mistakes, having his footwork where it needs to be, making the double teams when he needs to make them, making the right reads on a lot of things, tells me Juice Scruggs is where he needs to be. So I'm happy about that. And then finally, that defense played a hell of a lot better than I thought they were going to look. Knowing what DeMeco Ryans was trying to put in there and teach them over the offseason to bring to a young defense, to bring to a defense that has not learned this. And, you bring in a couple guys from San Francisco to help out, sure. But I expected to see much more lapses in defense and guys being in the wrong place and guys not even necessarily not being able to wrap up or tackle and not anything like that, but not being from basically beginning to end pretty well positioned and pretty well knowing the playbook and doing what they need to do. Will Anderson looked good. He got in and got some pressure. So, once you get to the regular season, you start to play, Mac Jones was not in. Blaine Zappi played the whole game. This is a new Bill O'Brien offense for that Patriots team. So it's not like you're doing this world beaters against a great team. But that being said, You want to see progress. You want to see things. And seeing that the defense, which was one of the strengths of the Texans last year when they didn't have many strengths, they still looked really good in the first preseason game. So something you can take out of that is DeMeco Ryans seems to have this defense believing in it, and we'll see in the next 2 preseason games if they continue to believe in it. As for the Cowboys, they play their first preseason game tomorrow. It is going to be a different kind of look because the Texans, you're a team with the number 2 pick. You have a ton of young guys playing. The Cowboys have a little bit more of, look, our goal is not to be a good regular season team. Our goal is to win in the playoffs. So the preseason is a very different look for the Cowboys as they take on their game on Saturday. They take on the Jaguars Saturday afternoon, 4:00. So we'll give you a couple things to look for when you go on and you play the Jaguars. A couple things. Are ATX Jags fans ready for this game? I can give you some to look for. If you're watching the Cowboys, though, I'll tell you a couple things. Keep on your radar while you're watching the game on Saturday. First off, Mazi Smith. Now, we don't know how much he's going to play. He did miss a practice, I believe, on Wednesday with some knee. They were just looking at knee tendonitis. So he may not play a lot. Hopefully he gets into the game and plays. But seeing how he can eat up an O-line, seeing how much kind of havoc he can create, because we're not really going to see Micah Parsons. We're not going to see, Lawrence. We're not going to see necessarily the best pass rushers. But is Mazi Smith going to be able to go in there and eat up some of this coverage, take away double team possibilities for some of the edge rushers for the Cowboys? That's number one thing to watch. Your number 1 pick. Let's see what he can go out there and do. It's going to be, I don't expect any sacks. You don't want to see anything. You want to see how many offensive linemen are getting in his way, and are they moving backwards or is he moving backwards? That's pretty much it, and see if he can wrap up when they try and run up the middle. That's it. Not a ton, but you want to see how strong he can be and his footwork on that D-line. Jalen Tolbert. This is a make it or break it year for Jalen Tolbert. Wide receiver. We know we're not going to see a lot of Brandon Cooks or CeeDee Lamb. We may not see any of them. So Jalen Tolbert is going to get his time to shine out there. Can he go out and make a name for himself, make himself earn that roster? Can he get on the field this year? And is he worth keeping around in Dallas? Let's see if Jalen Tolbert can make himself get in a fight for that 4th spot. Can he get into a fight for some playing time if Michael Gallup is not playing well? Can he get in that fight? Can Jalen Tolbert do that and be worth the project? Can he show that progress? The O-line as a whole. You want to see the O-line as a whole, what they look like. No Zach Martin. We know there's injuries. Terrence Steele's coming back off the injury. Tyler Biadasz had the injury to his ankle. I would assume he's probably not even playing. If he is, he's going to play a little bit. Tyron Smith, I would assume he's not playing. Tyler Smith, all reports look good in camp. Not doing anything spectacular, but also no one's really getting past him. So, but seeing how this O-line and all the backups, how this O-line is able to protect whoever is behind the O-line is going to be a big question. And then we go over to the running backs. Are they able to pass protect? So if we got the O-line breaking down, are these running backs able to pass protect? We know Deuce Vaughn is going to be able to run the ball. We know he can do that. He's got that innate ability to do it. All the pictures, go to Aaron Hogan's Twitter. Aaron Hogan posted a picture earlier today of Deuce Vaughn at practice. And everything you see of Deuce Vaughn in practice, man, he looks small. And when you see that, you go, I don't mind about that about a running back. I mind that in pass protection for a running back. So between him, Rico Dowdle, Malik Davis, how those guys are able to pass protect is a little bit more than I care about of them running. Because I know they can run the ball okay in preseason. That's not really my concern. It's how do they pass protect in preseason. That is what I'm looking for from the running backs. And KaVontae Turpin, does he play at the running back position? Does he play at the wide receiver position? I don't know if you can carry a return specialist anymore. He needs to be involved somewhere else. If he's got this deal and he's supposed to be the guy, you got to find a place for him. Or maybe it's a roster spot you need to give to a running back because you just don't know what you have there this year. DeMarvion Overshown is another guy you're going to have to look at. This is the one for every Texas fan here. We want to watch DeMarvion Overshown. We want to see what this guy can do once he gets his time to shine. Once he's going, we want to see what DeMarvion Overshown can do. Can he get in there? Can he go make a hit on whoever is playing backup quarterback for the Jaguars? I'm sure ATX Jags fan can tell me on the Twitter, on the Specs text line, who the backup is that DeMarvion Overshawn's going to be trying to tackle. Can DeMarvion Overshawn make that? And that is the question for DeMarvion Overshawn. If he gets in that game, can he make a big play? Can he get a highlight reel tackle or a highlight reel sack and kind of showcase what he can do to get in some real plays and get in a little bit of that Dan Quinn rotation? And finally, the last thing you're going to watch, and the thing you hate to watch as a Cowboys fan, but you have to watch it every year because Jerry Jones builds his team based on hope too often. Brandon Aubrey. They get rid of their other kicker. Brandon Aubrey is your kicker for the Cowboys right now. This is it. This is the chance. Brandon Aubrey, you better hit every extra point, every field goal, because if you miss one, all of Dallas is coming for you. No mistakes. You got to hit everything, Brandon Aubrey. Jerry Jones is basing the whole team's hopes on you, Brandon Aubrey. Go make that happen. When we come back, we'll get some of your answers on the big fat poll of the day. Who is the greatest coach in NBA history? We've got a couple different names going up there right now. We'll give you all that on the Specs text line. Anything else you got for us, we'll be giving a listener recap. Specs text line recap, 512-337-3776. We'll be hitting that up. We come back here on the Sports Complex on the Horn. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. Little White Miler there for you on a 512 Friday. They're playing all over town, getting it going. But they're also part of Ovi Fest happening this Sunday at the Rail House. And Kyle kicking off the show. All sorts of music happening at the Rail House on Sunday with Ovi Fest. You know, we got hip hop, you got some funk and some soul and some country. Or well, not country, singer-songwriter, I'll say. Singer-songwriter. And some rock and roll there with White Miler. All happening Sunday at the Rail House. And Kyle, all the information's up on my socials. You can follow them at It's Patrick Davis, and you can get there, and hopefully we'll come see you. I'll be out there having a good old time on Sunday. So maybe we'll see, and we'll be talking to Eddie Hernandez, who's going to be throwing the jam there a little bit later in the show. Let's get to the Specs text line, though, 512-337-3776. We will see. There is some Chuck Daly for the Big Fat Poll of the day today, if you want to chime in. Who is the greatest coach in NBA history? I've told you who I've got as my Mount Rushmore. Is Greg Popovich, Red Auerbach, Phil Jackson, and Pat Riley. So if you say, and I get Chuck Daly's close there, and for me too, it really is Pat Riley's on the end. Some of you guys don't like Phil Jackson as much. We'll get to that, but Pat Riley for me as a coach was really good. But I think he gets added into the Mount Rushmore somewhat because of executive work, because you add that in as well. But I'm putting him on there still. I still have him on there. And we have Phil as fourth. He never had to build a team. He inherited Jordan and Kobe and Shaq. Which I agree. I agree. There's something to be said about his history that he coached Kobe Bryant, he coached Michael Jordan, he coached Shaq, he got Scottie Pippen. I think the Phil Jackson thing of what one of his best abilities was to get players with massive egos and people that didn't necessarily even like each other to go win rings together on multiple occasions. He couldn't always pull it off, but he pulled it off a couple times, and he brought the best out of some of the best players in the world. So he gets it, and I get it's situational, but it is what it is. Zay says Red is the greatest. Yeah, no, look. Zay's not old enough to. Zay doesn't remember most of Popovich. He doesn't remember Pat. Come on, Zay. I love you. I could believe that he did go watch film, and if CeCe told him Red's the best, then I got to listen to CeCe. So Red is definitely on that list. I'm still going to take Popovich, but I get you, Zay. If you Zay, it's Red. How many titles would Larry Brown won with MJ, Kobe, or Magic? I don't know, because Larry Brown, some of his magic was that he didn't necessarily work with players with huge egos. He worked with players that he could be the underdog, and that's what he did in Detroit and got them picked up. But, yeah, he wasn't – I don't know if Larry Brown was the coach of massive ego guys. It seemed like those teams kind of fell apart, and we know the whole thing with Allen Iverson and that relationship and how crazy it was. I don't know if he does. He might. Michael Jordan, I think anybody, like a lot of guys, not anybody, clearly, but a lot of guys could have won a title with that Bulls team with Michael and Scottie, just because Michael was so good and so driven. Larry Brown, no. Are we saying Larry Brown? We do not have Larry Brown on your list. I don't have him on my list. I like Larry Brown a lot. Without Larry Brown, there is no Pop. We'll get into that in just a minute when I give my soliloquy on Coach Pop and play you some great stories about him. We talk about him going to the Hall of Fame tomorrow. Let's see what else we got on here. They're not going to have Deuce in on pass protection plays. Then who are they going? Is Tony Pollard going to play 90% of the snaps, and Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn only comes in when it's his run play, or he's going to come out to catch a pass? Because they don't have another guy. Like, I get we can say Malik Davis and Rico Dottle, but if they're just coming in for pass protection, then every time they come in the game, you might as well back up, because you're not trusting them to really run the ball. And you go, hey man, we can stop them. We don't really fear them, and maybe they'll come out and one of them will show off that they've improved a lot in the offseason. But I don't know if you can just stick guys out there that are just for pass pro, whether it's Malik Davis or Rico Dottle, and expect good defenses when you get to the playoffs not to see that. And we know Tony Pollard hasn't been a great pass protector either. And to stick a guy who got gassed in multiple games last year with Zeke Elliott still on the team and make him play pass pro for half of the game when you're trying to go downfield. And we know that Mike McCarthy has said he's going to run the ball a lot more. He doesn't have the running backs to do it right now, so I don't know how much he's going to do that. I think that may mean more quick passes and more short game. But I don't think you should have Deuce in on pass protection either. I think Deuce should be limited to a select amount of plays. I just don't know how you do that with this Cowboys team the way it's set up right now, because he's clearly the second best player in the running back room right now. So if he's better than Malik Davis or Rico Dottle, so you want to put him on the field, and you don't know if you trust those guys to run the ball consistently, then you had to put Deuce Vaughn out there, which means he has to use pass protection. And Mike McCarthy said he does do pass protection well. I don't know how he's doing that. I would hate to see a drill with him and Micah Parsons. It doesn't seem fair. ATX Jags fan does give us CJ Beathard will be playing for the Jaguars, and we know that Trevor Lawrence is probably not going to play. Yeah, I don't see why he would play. He's got that job locked up. Yeah, handling the 80s, 90s prima donna, cocaine-fueled personalities of the era. Phil rocked that, so did Pat. Yeah, there was a lot of, I won't say other activities going on, but we can say that there was a lot going on where the egos were pretty high. And Chuck Daly, too. Chuck Daly, he did a style of basketball that I like to basically rally up a gang at points to beat the crap out of other teams. And give him credit, and then go coach the dream team. And none of those guys seem to hold it against him. So, I mean, he gets mad respect for Chuck Daly. So he's there. He's an honorable mention. I'll put him on there. Maybe we'll get some votes when we put this up on our social media after today. You can join the conversation. We're going to get back and talk about Greg Popovich, though. Join the conversation. 512-337-3776. It's how you join the conversation right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. Hour 2 on a Friday, on a 512 Friday. Coming up, we'll talk about the man himself. Greg Popovich goes in the Hall of Fame tomorrow. I want to tell you some stories about Greg Popovich, some fun from Greg Popovich, and why he is the GOAT of coaches in the NBA, and possibly all sports. Also, brother A.D. Hernandez. He is a lead singer, guitar player from the Heebie-Jeebies, band that has been around town for a very long time. Also, the ADH Project is his latest project. He's going to be part of Obi Fest happening this Sunday at the Rail House. He will be calling into the show. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about his sports ties. We'll talk about his life in music and what he's got going on. All of that coming up here in the 6 o'clock hour here on the Sports Complex. Remember, you can join the conversation. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. You can join us there and hit me up on my social media at It's Patrick Davis. Where to hit me up. Let's get in to Greg Popovich, and let's start off with just stating the elephant in the room. Not even the elephant. It's the fact that will give us a starting point discussing Greg Popovich. That Greg Popovich is the all-time winningest coach in NBA history with 1,364 wins. That's a lot of wins. Number one all-time in wins in the NBA. This is from a guy who still will tell people that he does not belong as a head coach in the NBA. He says, I'm a head coach, but I'm not a Hall of Fame guy. I'm a D3 coach from his humble beginnings as a D3 coach. But let's kick things off. Get us in the mood for how to be surly enough to be Greg Popovich by playing a little montage of some of the best Greg Popovich in-game interviews for when they introduced something that most coaches felt was ridiculous and repetitive and not necessary. And what they did was they complained. What Greg Popovich did was give bad interviews.
How happy were you with the shot selection, even though they came back?
Happy?
Reasonably.
Happy? We got to keep our heads up and keep playing.
Thanks, Pop.
No second question. I'm hurt.
Thanks very much, Pop. Your impressions of the first quarter?
We're behind and they're ahead.
Why is that?
They scored more than we did, and we were pretty crappy on defense. It's been fun. Praise. I don't want praise.
Okay.
I want a question so I can get back to my team.
Okay, a minute into this game, you took Tony Parker out and put in Patty Mills. Why?
Because I wanted to.
That's Greg Popovich coming out of the locker room. Coach, what do you got to get back to? And then he shamed me, Mark. He said, at least we're down 3. We're playing the NBA champions. We're not turning the ball over. We're not sending them to the free throw line. I am thrilled with where we are at.
How do you slow that down in the second quarter? Well, we, hopefully they won't make 5 more threes in the second quarter, but that's tough. How do you get you guys to make some more shots? All right, ladies and gentlemen. I'll ask them to make the shots. Thanks.
There's Pop at his surliest in-game interviews. And if you just take him at that and you don't see the whole time and the whole picture of Greg Popovich, you may not get the image of the man. But Greg Popovich was a guy who went to the Air Force, played for the Air Force team, realized that his basketball career was not going to go much further than playing in college, ends up being a D3 coach. Pomona Pitzer is where he coached. Didn't really have a budget. Couldn't pay him much. There was a point where they said, hey, man, we can't really pay you that much. You could go do better. And he said, I'm happy here. I'm happy because I really feel like I'm making a difference in these guys' lives. And that's what he wanted to do. He was happy being in a place where he could have his family. He could he could be in this community. He could feel that he was making a difference, however small. He felt that he could make a difference. Then he meets Larry Brown. Larry Brown kind of takes him under his wing, and he takes a leave of a year to go work with Larry Brown in Kansas. Larry Brown basically starts to take him under his wing, and when Larry Brown goes to the Spurs, he brings Pop along with him, and everybody in the NBA and at the Spurs basically doesn't know why this guy is here. But he proves himself, goes in, starts coaching well. He starts doing things with the team, starts helping out. And this is around, because he coached from 79 to 88 at Pomona and Pitzer. This is early 90s, late 80s, early 90s with the Spurs. He gets fired for the Spurs. Larry Brown's gone. He's gone. He ends up in Golden State working with Avery Johnson So that's where that connection really builds. If they work together when they were at the Spurs, and they work together. And then a little bit of unknown, or not really talked about. It's known, but it's not really talked about Spurs history. People say it went Red McCombs, Peter Holt as owners of the Spurs. But there was a period in time when Red McCombs was going to sell the Spurs, and Peter Holt wasn't necessarily ready to buy the team yet. He was an investor. He was one of the people that was buying into the team, but it took a group of investors to basically go buy the team for Red McCombs, so the team did not get bought by somebody who was taking it out of San Antonio. The guy who leads that is a guy named General McDermott. He ran the USAA branch in San Antonio. He was a major part of USAA, and they were a major investor that kept Greg Popovich in San Antonio. And kept the San Antonio Spurs in San Antonio. So General McDermott, though, was an Air Force guy, and he knew Greg Popovich from his time at the Air Force. So when they're hiring a new general manager and Greg Popovich applies, one of the reasons he gets the interview and gets in is because General McDermott says, man, I may not know a lot about basketball, but I know people and I know leaders, and that man is a leader. And so he gets in. He gets the interview. The people like him. He gets the job. He becomes a general manager of the Spurs. Spurs start to build up. They had that 95 season where everybody's expecting everything. David Robinson wins the MVP. The Rockets are just better. Akeem Olajuwon goes in there, embarrasses them. Dennis Rodman tanks a season. There's a long storied feud with with Popovich and Dennis Rodman. But it goes that Popovich plays himself as head coach. They finish a poor season. They get the number 1 draft pick. And they draft Tim Duncan. And this is a little story from Steve Kerr talking about what Pop thinks about Tim Duncan to this day.
I have told you this story, but, when I have dinner with Greg Popovich, literally every dinner, when we sit down and the wine is poured, he says, here's to Tim Duncan. And his point is, without Tim, none of that happens.
That's how Pop, still to this day, apparently cheers every time he sits down to dinner, is here's to Tim Duncan. So the man knows. The man knows. But Tim Duncan will tell you that he credits Pop a lot with bringing him into the NBA and getting him ready to go. That Tim Duncan talks about right when the draft was happening and everything, and Popovich knows they have their 1 pick, so he goes to the Virgin Islands, meets Tim's parents. He goes, and Tim's dad was in poor health at the time. He goes, sits, and talks to him on the beach, goes to where Tim is comfortable to start a relationship, to build a relationship. Because he understands this man is about to walk into something very foreign. He's going to have his walls up, and he's not going to be comfortable. So let me go to where he is. Let me take the pressure off. Let's not make this too formal that I'm a head coach, general manager in the NBA. Hey, man, we're just coming to hang out and talk to you. Tim Duncan said years later, he didn't realize this wasn't what everybody did. He thought, I guess all coaches in the NBA do this. No, that's Pop. Pop who wants to make a personal connection because he knows I can't coach you if you don't trust me. If you don't trust me, if you don't respect me, I can't coach you the way I need to coach you. And that's kind of how he goes through life. That's kind of how Pop does it. Pop understands that you have to have respect and you have to have trust. And you have to have humility. And you can't ever get too big for it. And one of the things Pop is known for so many years is that he loves to go out and wine and dine people. Massive fan of wine, massive fan of food. And there's a story of how there's multiple stories of how when the NBA would send over the coaches from other countries. And basically they would tell the NBA teams, hey, you got to go take these guys out, show them the town, get a photo op. And basically they would send out the film guy or send out some assistant and go, hey, man, go take him down, show him the restaurant, do whatever. We're not going to do it. But Pop makes a big deal about it. Takes him out, shows him, introduces him to everybody, does everything. And those guys, and because he loves it, because he wants to do it. And then he talks to them and he picks their brain about basketball. He doesn't make it about he's a great coach. He makes it, I want to learn because I want to learn from you because there may be something that we don't know. One of these dinners he has is with representatives from the Argentinian team. And when nobody else is really scouting this young kid named Manu Ginobili, they're telling Popovich, hey, you need to start scouting this kid. Go over and start watching him. Start sending over scouts because, hey, we'll just tell you, this kid's going to be special. So that's how the Spurs get the first line on Manu Ginobili. That's how they're scouting him and feel good taking him at number 58 overall, letting him sit overseas for a little bit. But that's how you do it, because Pop had the foresight to treat people with respect, to show them the humility of being a coach, and earn their trust. That's what he built. Shaq tells a story that when Shaq was playing at Cole High School, he couldn't afford the type of shoes that were just too big, so you had to get them special made. You couldn't find them. And so his dad, in an attempt to try and find shoes, went to the Spurs to ask if they had any shoes. And Greg Popovich hits it off with Shaq's dad, gives him some shoes. Says, here, you got these size 18, size 19 shoes. We have some for you. Go take these. Wish you the best of luck. Mike Brown, assistant coach, now the coach of the Sacramento Kings, tells a story about how when he was separating from his wife, he was just starting out with the Spurs, and he's supposed to be scouting, and the team plane is on one side of the airport and he's trying to get his kids onto a plane to go back to their mother on another side of the airport. And it's kind of taking some time, and the kids are not feeling, and the kids don't want to go, and they're crying, and he's calling Pop and saying, hey, man, I'll be there. I promise I'll be there. I'm just dealing with this and dealing with the kids. And Pop goes, no, spend time with the kids. We'll be fine. And he says, no, I'll be there. And he goes, don't worry about it. And he goes, no, it's my scout. I have a responsibility. I will get the kids taken care of. And Pop says, if you show up on this plane, you're fired. You take care of your family first. Because he understands about respect. He understands about trust. And he knows that Mike Brown can be a piece of this team for years to come. Now, Mike Brown may be a guy who will continue to call plays when they play against him in the NBA Finals that the Spurs know and help the Spurs sweep the Cavs and win the Spurs another NBA title. That too, but Mike Brown shows you the humility of Pop to say, look, we'll carry the load. Pop can also be sarcastic, trying to break the ice with guys. And when you have a reputation, he does, sometimes it can result in people not understanding that he was joking. Here's a story from Jock Landale about when he first came to the Spurs.
I will say that, like, my first week in the facility, he came to me, and I kind of sit back on it now. I'm like, I was probably sarcastic, but he came to me the first practice, and he was like, right, I want you to do like a 5-minute presentation on the Joe Biden infrastructure bill that's about to be passed for like $3 trillion. And I was like, is this guy serious? Like, I don't even know if he's serious. So I went home and, like, in my notebook, like, writing down this full speech about it. And I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. And then, like, a week passed. I didn't say anything. A week passed, and I was like, Pop, like, I got this speech written down. Like, I put some serious time into this. You want me to make this speech? But what's going on? And he was like, oh, I was being sarcastic. But now that I know that, you are for sure telling us about this. So I had to get up in front of the whole group and, like, read it out of this notepad. And I was just like, I definitely could have dodged that. But
yes. There's Pop asking Jock Landale to do a report on a infrastructure bill. Jock Landale does it, and when he finds out that he actually did it, he makes him give the presentation. Just joking around with guys, just being friends. But this is Popovich and how he gets to coach and how he can get respect, how he can build relationships. That Jock Landale, after that point, they can have a different relationship. And he can coach him in a different way because Pop understands the keys to being a great leader. It's what makes him what he's able to do. 2010 playoffs, the Spurs lose 103-81 in Game 5 to the Mavs in the first round. Team is freaking out. They don't know. You just get mollywopped in a game. What are you going to do? Pop immediately calls a restaurant, gets all the tables set, gets rooms for them, has dinner with everybody. Brings them all in. Talk about anything but basketball. Tomorrow we'll talk basketball. We're not watching game film. We're not doing that. We're going to talk about people for a little bit and get away from it. Have your family here. Let's go be people for a night, and let's just wipe this off, and let's wake up tomorrow and go attack it. After Game 6 of the 2013 Finals, they had a dinner planned. They thought they were winning the championship. They knocked on wood, and they did it before they said it. I told you can't do that. You have to do it after you say it. They did that. 2013, Ray Allen sinks a dagger. They have dinner planned. Team dinner celebration. After the game, everyone's like, well, I guess dinner's off. Pop's like, no. We need to go, and we need to go back, and we need to clear our mind. So they all go and have dinner, and Pop stands at the door and introduces and talks and welcomes everybody in there. Tells them what they did good. Builds up confidence. Has the families there. Builds this team up, and they didn't win that series. They lose the series. And if you talk to the players, they'll say it's a big reason why that team was ready to attack next year. It's a reason they had the confidence to go in and win another NBA Finals in 2014. Then you hear Doris Burke talk about after that game in 2013 when they lose the finals, and she's walking out of the arena and Pop's walking out of the arena. Doris Burke says, I realize I'm on a path that we're going to cross, and I don't want to talk to him because he's clearly going to be pissed off. She walks out. Pop walks out. She puts her head down, trying not to make anything. Pop grabs her by the shoulder and says, hey, how you doing, Doris? What are you doing now that the offseason's up? She's like, oh, I may go to Napa Valley. He goes, oh, you know what? Call my assistant. I'll give you all the places to go to. We'll hook you up. And he does. He does. Because that's who Popovich is. And that's what makes him special. That's what puts him in a different camp. Because so much of what people can see is Popovich being political, Popovich being intense. But there is this other side to Greg Popovich that earns a trust. And one of the funnest parts about Pop is that the reports are over and over again. If you can't laugh at yourself, you're probably not going to work on the Spurs, which is a weird thing to think for a basketball team. But this is apparently one of the tenets to the Spurs way that has worked for so long, which may be a reason why Kawhi Leonard did not work on the Spurs, which may be a reason why, as good as Steven Jackson was, he could not continue to work on the Spurs. That some of these guys didn't have the ability to have the humility that you need to have into these organizations to make it work the Spurs way. You can still be a great player, but it may not work in this system. And if you can find a guy who wants to learn, who has that humility, you can make him grow. There's a great story from Richard Jefferson. And I had to censor this a lot because Richard Jefferson was clearly not on TV when he said this. This is a story from Richard Jefferson about Pop in a timeout. So you say all the nice things about Pop. You say all the great things about Pop. This is Pop in the intensity of a game. And the other factor of Pop that makes him a great coach.
I was playing for the Spurs, and so, he's got one of the quickest timeouts, and guys were BSing. Matt Bonner goes to check into the game, right? Now, while he's at the scorer's table, right? He's at the scorer's table, the team is messing up. So Coach Pop calls a timeout. Everyone comes down to the bench, and so then Matt sits on the bench with the other four guys and one person that he was checking out for. So Pop is on one of those moments. He's like, Tony, what the are you doing? You better get back on fire. And he's just going down the line, lighting everybody up. So Tony, what the Manu, if you do one more of those left-handed threes, I swear to God, it's like, Pop, I'm left-handed. I don't give a Manu, Tim, if we have to fight, he's just going down the line. Now he gets to Matt Bonner, right? And he gets to Matt Bonner. Now Matt hasn't played. Matt was at the scorer's table. He's going down the line. And he gets to Matt Bonner. He's like, and Matt, you're just a boom, 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 and just lights into him. And Matt's like, me? I ain't even been in the game. What do you mean me for? It was one of the funniest moments I had ever had. And I think it was in the first half because afterwards in this at halftime, Coach Pop comes back into the locker room. And he's like, yeah, Blake, you still Matt. And everyone starts laughing. But that clip just reminded me of that, where Pop, it didn't matter. Anyone could get it. If you were sitting there in that bench, he was going to find a reason. He's like, I wasn't even in the game. So love that story. Gave me a flashback.
There you go. I appreciate Richard Jefferson saying blank at the end after saying the F word 12 times in that clip. But that's a Pop story. That's what it is. We've heard from guys that they would hate that Tim Duncan will be the guy at the end of the bench, and he would start by yelling at Tim Duncan. And then he would come down and yell at you, and you go, well, if you just yelled at Tim, then I have to take it. I have to just be the one to yell at it because Tim Duncan's not getting mad at it. Then I got to deal with it. And it's funny because he finally gets his opportunity to coach in the Olympics, to be the head coach, and it was kind of after when he should have been it, but the timing didn't work out. He finally gets his time. They win the gold medal, and at the end of it, he just gives his speech, and it is about 2 minutes, so I don't want to play it because it goes a little bit long. And the key about it is another cuss word. But Popovich gives the entire speech talking about how the people didn't believe in them, how people weren't sold on this team, and then when they underperformed early on, then people wrote them off, and people said this was going to be the worst Olympic team and everything else. And he gives his whole speech, and you see the team kind of standing around, and he finishes the speech by saying, well, to all those people, I just want to ask you, how the bleep do you like us now? And the whole locker room erupts, and how you can get a group of guys that are all stars in the league to kind of sit back and go, look, man, we're all stars, but we respect you, and is how you treat them with respect, why you treat them with humility, that it does mean the world to you, but at the end of the day, hey, man, we're all still competitors. And Pop is one of the fiercest competitors in the league. And that's why you feel comfortable with him working with Victor Wembanyama, who seems to be a hell of a competitor in himself. I want to leave you with one last story about Popovich, and this is a great story from Boris Diaw. They were doing at Tony Parker's jersey retirement. Tony Parker also going to the Hall of Fame. We'll give him his own segment. We'll give him some love at another time. I just want to talk about Pop because he is the GOAT, and really for someone like me, has meant a lot to my life personally as a Spurs fan, being one of the masterminds to build this team. So Boris Diaw tells a story about a Christmas dinner when, it's during the regular season. A lot of the family for Boris Diaw, for Tony Parker, are back in France, so they can't really go home. So they're kind of, Pop invites them over for dinner, invites them to come over and have Christmas dinner with him. And at a point in dinner, they notice that Pop and Tony are gone, and this is where Boris Diaw takes over.
Pop disappeared, Tony disappeared. I'm like, where are they at? So I go look around the house. I like snooping around. And then I see Pop doing film with Tony about the game the night before. I'm like, we're on Christmas, people eating dinner, and Pop, just like you just apologized, was yelling at Tony. But then I go, oh, look, Dad, you missed this shot and turn over the ball. How can you do that? And I'm like, wow. So I was like, in the same night, you could have the family setting, all the loving and care, and at the same time caring about making Tony a better player on Christmas night.
That really kind of sums it up for Pop, is he is the guy to go, hey, I want your whole family to come over for dinner, and I'm going to take you aside and yell at you about film. That's why Pop's one of the greats. Hall of Fame ceremony airs this Saturday at 7 on NBA TV. Gene Best, Gary Blair, Pau Gasol, former Spur, Becky Hammon, of course, great for Silver Stars, David Hickson, Gene Keady, Dirk Nowitzki, Jim Valvano, Dwayne Wade, the whole 1976 U.S. Women's Olympic team that set the pace. And, of course, Tony Parker and Greg Popovich going in. That's where it's going to be, 7 p.m. on NBA TV on Saturday night. Greg Popovich, the GOAT, responsible for one of the reasons why I am here today is because of my love of the Spurs and how fun he's made it. But teaching people how to be great leaders, and if you want to be a coach or a leader, you may not agree with everything he does, but if you look at not even being coach, but being a person in life, whatever you do, if you can learn to treat people with respect and kindness, the way Pop does, and then expect the best out of everyone, you will be able to have real friendships that mean something special, and you'll be able to make the world a little better place in whatever you do. When we come back, Eddie Hernandez from the ADH Project talking about Ovi Fest, talking about his love of sports, talking about a whole lot more. When we come back here on the Horn Sports Complex. let that play out a little bit. Some ADH Project there for you. Welcome back to the Sports Complex here on the Horn. ADH Project playing a part of Ovi Fest happening this Sunday at the Rail House. Adi Hernandez helping out, playing with ADH Project, hosting the Jam, the Overlord Family Band, and one of the best musicians, I'll say, one of the best or most positive, I don't know how to phrase this, but one of the best guys you've seen in the Austin music scene for probably the last 15 to 20 years. He has been killing it. And he joins me on the phone right now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. Please welcome Adi Hernandez to the line. Adi, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing so good, Patrick. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, brother. Doing good. I'm looking forward to Sunday. I know we're going to be out there having a blast.
Oh, yeah.
But let's start. Let's start off before we get to Sunday. Let's start off by telling the people a little bit more about you. You were in a band called the Heebie-Jeebies. When did the Heebie-Jeebies form and come in Austin?
Wow, man, that was in the early 90s. We did I first moved to Austin like in 90, 91. And then the band really got cooking around 95. That's when we started touring and we ended up getting kind of picked up through the industry and toured quite a bit and just and played anywhere and everywhere, man. We were like the Hustlers, man, back then. We played anywhere there was a PA.
Back then you were the Hustlers? I think you've been the Hustler since then. You still the Hustler.
Man, we just love to play, man. That's really what it is. We enjoy playing for people, man. That's where it all comes from. But yeah, man, it's kind of like where we got our jump, around the Austin, and then we ended up touring around the U.S. a little bit, and then, things came to an end, and we just kept going, changed the name of the band, revamped, and got back out there again, and just been doing it ever since still.
Yeah, because how long have you been doing ADH Project now?
Man, I was trying to date it because even when we were still doing the Heebie-Jeebies, I was doing little side projects.
Yeah.
I had other songs that I was writing that necessarily didn't fit us. And man, I was lucky to do some residencies there in Austin on the off days, like a Monday or a Tuesday, with like Brandon Temple, Michael Erdy.
Nice.
And we just formed these other little groups, and yeah, man, we did that all at the 1-to-1 with the help of Greg Ware and Destiny, and they just helped kind of move that along. And then eventually when the Heebs kind of defunct, that's when I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and create the ADH as a permanent stay. And then I released all that music. So yeah, man, just kept moving.
There you go.
Yeah. Keep moving.
Because the album Spectrum came out in 2015. And that's if you want to go check out, that's available wherever you get it. Is ADH Project is how you find it. If you get the play now, his name is 88. His name is Adi Hernandez, but it's the 80 is the number. It's confusing when we say it. It's not written down, but you can find it online.
Yeah,
you can find that. But 80's been 80's been someone in the scene that you always see with a smile and a hug, and that was something that MC Overlord was too. And so we do Ovi Fest. We do Ovi Fest every year. And I've been lucky to have 80 on a couple of these bills. And this year I taxed him with putting together, helping put together this jam to celebrate the life of MC Overlord. And then, everything happened here at the radio station. And so I got more preoccupied, but Adi Hernandez has been handling everything for me wonderfully. So, but Adi, tell the people what they can expect on Sunday from ADH and from the jam.
Well, this really is, I mean, you said, you just said it, hugs and smiles, man. I mean, that's basically what you're going to see, because that's what we learned. My first encounter with Ovi was my friend Michael Erdy, my good friend Michael Erdy, introduced me when I first moved to Austin to Ovi. And, he took me to the Steamboat. I walked in, met this guy who was larger than life, man. Who
in both ways.
In both ways, like literally, man. The guy's like, and I'm a 5'3". He's what I don't even remember, man. To me, he was like 10 feet tall at the time when I met him. But the first thing he did, he didn't even say anything. The first thing he did was give me a hug. That was like his trademark. You know what I mean? He was like, "Come here, man. Give me," and he would hug you to the point where you couldn't even breathe. And it was just like, it was just always that acceptance, and no matter what kind of music you played or what you did or who you were, what level, he always gave respect and love. And man, I learned that from him and all the people that came, around him that performed with him. I just learned that. I learned it from them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what you're going to see. You're going to see that on Sunday, man. You're going to see a lot of that. Everyone celebrating. We all miss him dearly, man. I mean, you'll see some tears too, man, because people are going to be reflecting. But the reality is, man, he was always a very uplifting, very positive person, man. And it was something that I'm honored to be doing the show, man, and and to keep his spirits alive and just keep it family like he always had it,
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the, like, what we have with MCR, like, when we talk about, on the show, and then I know Rob Bevers used to ask me, he would ask, he's like, so with the live music capital of the world and how people are treated, and the scene has changed, crazily over the last 20, 30 years in Austin. MC Overlord was one of those guys who kept it going as much as he could throughout the years by trying to help out young bands and if you had a benefit show, he was always the first one who would jump on board. He was just that guy. And so this is something where it's fun for all of us to kind of continue to keep giving back to a legacy of a guy who taught us how to do things the right way. And so you just always want to, keep people to not only remember MC Overlord, but remember what he taught us of, hey, man, the scene only dies when we let it die completely. It's never going to be the same as what it was. But as long as we keep helping young bands and we keep helping each other and we keep pushing, then we can keep our piece of Austin music alive. And that's what's so great what Daddy's doing. We've got a full lineup of bands that are going to be out there. And when I say we, too, I helped put this on originally, but, the help of Greg Ware out at the Rail House and Kyle and Anthony, who helps give us a venue, and to the bands that play. We have White Mylar, which is the next generation of Vallejo. They got some of the next Vallejo kids, Rafe Murray. That band is awesome. We played them a little bit earlier. We have Derek Davis Band, which Derek Davis is one of the bands that Overlord worked with plenty, and he's so talented and so good. Graffiti Funk is making their debut with Les Fisher, which if you ever saw MC Overlord and Les Fisher together, you probably got slapped on the back of the head or something like that. But that'll be happening. And then ADH Project and The Jam, and just a bunch of great, Trey God the MC and Doc Deuce and Mike Dill and Father Rhyme, all those guys hopping up with you. And then Tomar Williams, who played with Don back years and years and years ago. I met him a few years back. We just were telling stories about Overlord for years, for hours. And so I asked him, and he's like, yeah, man, I don't have a gig. Let's go out, and I'm going to hop up, and he's going to hop up. Kevin Flatt in the horn section is going to be out there. It is going to be a blast.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show, man. If you can make it, come on out. Please do. And you can get a taste of what, a little bit of Austin history and the future, really. You're going to see it all. You get to see all in one night, man. It's going to be great.
It's going to be a lot of fun. But all right, but now we have you on the phone, 80, and I know because hanging out with you, that you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I also know you are not from Pittsburgh.
No, sir.
I know. I'm fully aware that you are not.
Yeah, man. Since I was a little kid, my dad took us to a game, and I just saw them run out of the little dressing room or whatever. They came out onto the field.
That's how you tell musicians versus sports people.
Like,
over there, they're backstage. Backstage where it's a locker room. Come on, man.
My dad's like, I can't help it. My dad's like, that's not the Cowboys. That's not the Cowboys. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. And he's like, that's the wrong team, son. That's the wrong team. And I just stayed with them, man. I stayed with them all those years, and they've always been a great team, man, a great franchise. They're always fun to watch, and I'm excited about this year, man. I think this year we'll turn the corner and be a much better team, and I'm hoping for playoffs, and that'll be enough for me for the team.
Are you on board with Kenny Pickett at the quarterback position?
But you know what? He showed that he can do it, man. At the end of last year, he wheeled a couple of games. He At first I wasn't, I'll be honest. I was just like everyone else, man. I thought they were choosing too close to home with him being from, right there in the same locker room in college, just in the same building. I just thought maybe they're just doing this because he's right there.
They know him, yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of scared me, but he's really shown to be a great quarterback. He's going to be a good quarterback. He's got the potential to be a great quarterback. But we'll find out this year. This is going to be the real test. He's going to start the season, and we're going to see. We're going to see what he's really made of. And of course, being a Steelers fan, I got to say, yeah, he's going to do it. We're going to win. We're going to win it all. Just being a fan, but being realistic about it, it's like, he's got to show it, and he kind of did the last 6-7 games of last season. He really, when it was the turn for the quarterback to take over the game and win the game, he actually did it. You know what I mean? And that, to me, really shows the sign of a winner. And I like how he handled himself. Throughout the season, he seems to be a good guy. So we're hoping. I'm hoping for it, man.
The AFC North is going to be crazy this year because Cleveland could have a resurgent year. Cincinnati, we know, is always good. We saw Joe Burrow back on the field today, so his injury's not that bad. Lamar Jackson coming back with the new contract. I will give the Steelers this. Woo. They probably have the best coach. Mike Tomlin is a hell of a coach, so I'll give the Steelers this. I do want to – so if you're a Steelers fan, though, I know you chose them because they weren't and they're not the Cowboys. Are you a hater of the Steelers rivals, or are you just anti-Cowboys?
No, I'm not even anti-Cowboy, man. I just I'm just Steelers fan, and then I'm a player. I like players, and I can say I don't really hate any teams. I don't hate the Cowboys. I don't really get into the rivalries as much as like most fans. I just want to see a good game, man. I'm really into the sport. Like, I like the sport. You know what I mean? I like close games. I don't like blowouts. I want to be on the edge of my seat when I see a game, So, I'm not that I root for the other team, but like, if it's an interception or, a good block or anything, I'm like, man, respect, because I love the game. I really do love the game, and I just want to see, everyone do well, but I want my team to win in the end. So, unfortunately, someone's got to lose. But there's no hate, man.
There's no hate on 80. 80 don't hate nobody. Man, let me ask you, did you ever play sports? I know you're a smaller guy.
I did. I played every sport I could until, the sport outgrew me, which you're right. I'm short. You're right. I'm short, man. Junior high, I played a little football, and I played baseball every year I possibly could. And then, once I got into high school, I dropped baseball and got into, music, all the music classes I could get into, theory and then jazz band and all the good stuff. And then, once I got out, started touring. So, but yeah, I love sports, man. Basketball, baseball, anything we could play. Me and my brothers always played. So
there you go.
Loved it.
Well, so they can come out and see you Sunday at the Rail House for LV Fest. The show's going to start at 4. You guys are going on at 8. They can come out there. We know that. Where else can they find you? Where's the best place to find you online if they want to check out some more ADH Project? And what do you got coming up?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can find us, at www.adhproject.com. You can, or any of the social, Instagram, Facebook, or streaming. It's just ADH Project, 80H Project. So you can find me that way. And as far as stuff coming up, next Tuesday we head out to Nashville. We're going to be heading out that way. We're doing 4 shows in 3 days, and meeting with some people in the industry just to get stuff kind of recapped and get move forward again. I a year ago, actually, September 1st, will be a year since my heart surgery.
There you go.
So already, it's already been a year. So
that's crazy.
I took almost a complete year off, and then kind of just out of the industry type stuff. So we're going back to kind of rekindle some stuff and just slowly but surely get back out on the road and then make another run in October to New Orleans and stuff like that. So, but yeah, you can find me online anywhere there's streaming live music. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure we'll see you
man.
around plenty more. We have to get you back. We may have you performing here one day. Once we moved in a new place, we may have you come in and perform for us at some point too. Eddie Hernandez, thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you out Sunday. I'll be out there Sunday at the Rail House. He'll be out there Sunday at the Rail House. We'll see you then. Thank you for joining us, Eddie.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you.
Eddie Hernandez there, 80H Project. You can check that out, 80hproject.com. That's the number 80H Project is where you can check that out. We come back, we'll wrap it up here on Last Call on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and at hornfm.com. on the web. We appreciate all you guys. We'll be back next week, starting on Monday, 5 p.m. We'll be back here with more Sports Complex. Until then, be kind to each other. Take care of each other. Keep your underwear clean. And we'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.